My name is Erika Munro, and I am the Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs at Endeavor, specifically with regard to their non-scripted content. So the history of my career started when I graduated from Columbia Law School in New York City in 1996. I became a junior associate at a Wall Street firm by the name of Strzok and Strzok and Levan, where I practiced commercial corporate litigation. About 4 years later, I moved to a smaller firm called Pryor, Cashman, Sherman and Flynn to focus on entertainment-related litigation matters. I quickly discovered I just did not like litigation, whether it was corporate or entertainment, which was my focus, and ended up working for a client of the firm's on the transactional side. He owned a record company at the time called Def Jam Records, and his name is Russell Simmons. And he started a internet company, one of the first content-based internet companies that existed, and I think that was 1999 or early 2000, at the very, very beginning of the internet. So I went to work in-house for him at 360hiphop.com as Director of Business Affairs, where my job was to license content in and off of the website, and to make deals with content creators, and to host web pages for hip hop artists. Back then, no one had websites of any kind, and so we were one of the first to host web pages and websites for musical artists. At that time, BET.com purchased 360 Hip Hop soon thereafter, and I became Assistant General Counsel for BET.com, working on all things digital, and specifically online content creation and production, and licensing and acquisitions. And then Viacom bought BET, and I was soon there out of a job with all of the other BET.com and 360hiphop.com employees, and ended up finding my way at Arista Records, which at the time all of the record labels were banding together to create an entity called MusicNet to fight an illegal music downloading and streaming service called Napster. And so I was the MusicNet attorney at Arista Records, where we tried to figure out how to put their record catalog online, and how to not just distribute, but to also market and pay out to artists based on those downloads and streams. A few years later, I was hired by MTV Networks, the irony of previously being bought out by Viacom, as a television production attorney at VH1. I was at VH1 as a TV production attorney for about 5 years, when I was offered the opportunity to move into a strictly business affairs instead of business and legal affairs position at Turner Networks, at their True TV network. And I was a vice president of business affairs at True TV for about 8 years before I decided to switch gears altogether and move back into the tech space in business development and strategic partnerships at Google. I worked in strategic partnerships at Google for 3.5 years, most of which was in the strategic alliances and strategic partnerships within the diversity, inclusion, equity and inclusion team at Google. And that was a great experience. Very, very far left from my legal career, and really informed a lot of who I am as a professional and as a leader and as an operator. I was then asked, because of those qualities, to come and run the non-scripted business and legal department at Endeavor Content, which was Endeavor's content creation and production arm. And I have been at Endeavor for 2 years now, where I have been leading a team of lawyers in both LA and New York, working on any and every piece of content that is not a scripted feature film or a scripted television show. So anything from documentaries, feature documentaries, documentary series, reality shows, talk shows, live to tape shows, podcasts, music, etc. So that's my career in a nutshell. Actually, what I love about what I do, it's twofold. I love deal making. I love deal strategy. So deal making, deal strategy is my favorite part of it. I think it's so creative. I am a closet creative. I tell people all the time that I think entertainment attorneys are actually creatives who probably were just too afraid to step out in front of the camera. But I'm a closet creative. So for me, deal strategy, language, negotiation language is creative to me. And it really kind of riles up my creative juices to kind of, create structure, deal structures. And in the non-scripted space, it's really easy to do because our space is it's not as regulated as, scripted television or film, which is very highly, unionized. Most of the work that we do in non-scripted is mostly for the most part, non-union. And so, we use industry standard and basically common sense to come up with our deals. So I love that because it is very creative to me. And then the second part of it is the people operations of what I do. I love being a leader. I love leading people. I love developing talent. I love inspiring and motivating. And so for me, my job, running this department, and I tell my team all the time, is to make them, better professionals. Obviously, if I hired you, you can do the work. So I'm not as concerned with the work as I am with your development as a professional, whether that's experience-wise or personally as a professional, and how to develop yourself as a professional. So I think out of everything, and I think that was kind of born out of my role at Google, working in people operations, was to, I think what resulted from that was me being able to and desiring to put people first beyond the work. And so I love leading a team and being a part of people's development and trajectory, projecting into their future. And so that's the most fulfilling part for me. Did I have an idol growing up? I think, well, musically, my muse is Sade. However, and you can probably tell from the bright lipstick and the hair and the slick back ponytail. But professionally, I think, for me, I always wanted to be in entertainment. In college, I was a broadcast media major, and decided I wanted to go into entertainment law, but I never really knew or heard of anyone who looked like me doing that, in that practice of law. And so I was riding to a visit at Columbia before I went to law school there. I was in a car and there was a radio show on WBLS in New York City called Radio Scope. And on the show, they featured different artists and professionals in entertainment. And it just so happened that on my ride to Columbia, they featured a Black female entertainment lawyer by the name of Nina Shaw. And I was like, oh my goodness, this person does exist, and I can actually aspire to be this person. And I remember her name from the radio program. And when I enrolled at Columbia, one day in my dorm room, I wrote her a letter. This was before computers and all that stuff. This was early 90s. And I found her address using the, good old yellow pages, or however I was able to find her address in Los Angeles. Or maybe they said the name of her firm, and I found the address of the firm. And I wrote her a letter And I said, I want to be just like you. And she said, she wrote me back and she said, if you're ever in LA, come and see me. And that was that. But many, many years later, when one of my really close law school buddies moved out to LA trying to do entertainment work, I said, hey, you have to look this woman up. And he looked her up. They became friends, and she was looking to hire an associate, and he was helping her hire someone. And I said, you need to take that job. And now today he is her law partner. And so it's a full circle moment. Ironically, I don't think that we really spoke since then, outside of the letters, and, just kind of like, hey, how are you, at events. But it's really insane how impactful that first, radio show exposure, how that ended up with my friend actually now being her law partner in a very, very successful Hollywood legal practice. What is Erika's superpower? I smile about this because I believe my superpower exists in my passion. And usually I'll tell people my superpower is my relationships. I think that's kind of like my core value. Relationships are part of like what I value at my core, and I think what makes me who I am. But the superpower behind that drives that is my passion. I'm a very passionate person, very intense, very, very deep. And so when I do anything, I do it in depth, and I do it with passion and vigor. And so when I establish relationships, whether they're professional or personal, I put the same passion and vigor and commitment behind those. And that's why in my line of business, when I'm working with agents and lawyers and managers to get deals done, them trusting me and having faith in me and believing in my word and believing that I'm trying to do the best that I can for all parties concerned is probably the most pivotal quality in deal making for me, because it really is about putting your trust in other people. Like, people used to ask me all the time, well, what do you do in business affairs? And I say, well, what I do basically is I make people do what they don't want to do for a living. And the only way that I can do that is by convincing them that what I'm proposing is the best case scenario for everyone involved. You may not see it in the short term, but in the long term, I should be able to show a long-term vision that people can buy into. What have been some of the challenges in my career, and how have I overcome it? Some of the challenges, I would say, some of the more obvious ones that exist, being a woman, being a Black woman, starting out at a younger age. I'm no longer young, but I remember just totally feeling disadvantaged and defeated because of the package that I came in, especially starting as a litigator, a Wall Street litigator. I would walk into a room and I would automatically be discounted. And I remember one of the partners at my second firm that I worked with really closely, her name was Lisa Buckley, and we would walk into depositions. She was a white woman, I'm a Black woman, and we would walk in and to a room of all men, mostly white men. And, they'd instantly assume that, we weren't worthy, or we didn't have the capability to conduct the deposition or the settlement talks. And I actually used to get really incensed by it, but I learned, especially from Lisa over time, to use it to my advantage. So, when people discount you, you don't automatically get defensive about it. You use it to your advantage. So it was cool for me to walk into a room very unassumed and have people drop their guard or make the assumption that, they didn't have to bring their A game for someone like me. And I just would go in and clobber them. And so that was like the best part of it, is just taking that assumption that, we were less than and using it to our advantage. Moreover, more recently, I think throughout the majority of my career, I also faced the challenge of just not knowing what I wanted to do professionally. And it really bothered me. I mean, when I was a litigator on Wall Street, as I alluded to earlier, didn't really love it, switched to a smaller firm. If I worked in litigation in fields that I was interested in, entertainment, music, I would like it better. No, I didn't. It was just entertainment. And it took me a while to find my footing. And I used to be really bothered by the fact that I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But what I did know was what I didn't want to do. And it made me frustrated that I could figure out what I didn't want to do, but I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. But what I learned after the fact, and this is what I teach younger people in general, not just attorneys, is to value that which you don't want, because knowing what you don't want leads you to eventually knowing what you do want. So I knew I didn't like this quality of my work, or this type of environment, or that type of reaction. And so I got to add all of those things up to then figure out, like, okay, out of this whole basket of not wants, things I don't want, I was able to figure out what I actually wanted. And when you hit that aha moment in your life, it wasn't until I actually went to work at Turner in business affairs that I realized, like, wait a minute, this is what I'm meant to do. My old boss, Michael Lanzalata, used to tell me, Erika, you and I are cool attorneys, we're okay attorneys, we're good attorneys, but we're much better business people. And I didn't understand that until I actually was in the seat and I saw just how much I shined and I excelled in a business affairs capacity. And that's when I had my aha moment, and I realized all of those not wants led to this aha moment of this is what I want, and this is what the passion and the career that I know I want to follow. How would I like to change the world? I would like to change the world, at least the world that I'm in or that I have influence over, by centering relationships, centering humanity, centering people over, money, success, fame, power. I know it sounds just idealistic, but I am such a people person and an advocate for people that I really feel like if you center humanity and center people, all other things will follow. We have been put on this earth to achieve. And when we're in optimal environments, those environments allow us to achieve, and that achievement leads to success and monetary gain and power. But if you don't honor that soul in humanity, that desire to be positioned to achieve and create conditions for people to achieve, then you're really just sucking the soul out of people and out of humanity, and the resultant gains of that are not sustainable. So that's my long-winded way of saying, if I could change the world, or at least the world that I'm in, I work to change the mindset of the value of people and of recognizing the humanity of human resources and human capital, and recognizing the humanity in those that I work with and interact with on a daily basis. I don't accept anything less but to be treated as a respectful human being, and therefore that's the way that I tend to treat people as well, regardless of the conditions of the situation.